Can't tell you how excited I am for 2022. I think we all are. Get 2021 in the rearview mirror, and hopefully we have a much better world that we can be in 2022. And I just want to say happy holidays, everybody. Welcome back. I don't know about all of you, but Monday was yesterday a little rough start, but hopefully you're all back in the flow of things, and really appreciate you joining us for this hopefully very exciting and interesting, intriguing set of sessions. As you guys all know, I'm 20 years in the cybersecurity industry and former CEO of McAfee and FireEye Mandiant. I'm now an investor in a platform called NightVision, and we do investments and advisories in the cyber safety, security, and privacy marketplaces. And it's kind of fun to be an investor these days with the markets the way they are and the exciting opportunities that are out there. And I also serve on National Security Council. I chair safety and security for Delta Airlines. I sit on 20 or so boards, and I just got to say, this is an honor to be a part of the cybersecurity industry. So what I wanted to do today as we kick off the new year is get a 360-degree view, if we can, of the cybersecurity landscape. Today we have three parts that we're going to be talking to some of the greatest individuals who run some of the most interesting platforms and entities in the world of cybersecurity. And the first part, and I'll introduce them in just a second, is looking at it through the eyes of distribution and reselling and managed security services with our guests here from Optiv and Ingram. But we also have a second segment, which I think will be just as interesting, where we've got two of the most incredible sell-side analysts in the industry, Sterling Oddie and Rob Owens, who collectively, I think, have about 50 years, literally 50 years of covering the cybersecurity market all the way back to 1997. And we'll get a chance to talk to them about past and present and what's going on with trends in the public markets as well as the private markets, get a full view of the market segments from their angles. And then we're going to have a session with some private investors as well. So we're going to get a chance to see it through distribution. We're going to get a chance to see it from public Wall Street. Then we're going to get a chance to see the markets from private investing. All three are pretty interesting market segments that hopefully you'll get a lot of interesting insights from. So with no further ado, I'm going to introduce our two fabulous guests here today on our NightVision program. And both are, you know, what I would consider just friends. And I'm really thankful to have them both on here. The first one, Kevin Lynch, there in the middle. Kevin obviously is the CEO of Optiv. And I've been proud to be a part of working with Kevin for the last few years. He's really built an amazing platform here. 35 plus years of experience strategically in operating roles. Been the CEO of Optiv for the last couple of years, just really transforming the business and doing an amazing job, Kevin. Before that, he was at Deloitte as well, so tremendous experience in the cyber practices at Deloitte. And even before that, a lot of work at AECOM. He was a director at PwC before that as well. Tremendous experience on so many different views. Optiv sees a tremendous amount of procurement in the industry. So thank you, Kevin, for coming on. Our second guest here, Eric Cole. Really appreciative of Eric coming on, and as well, running Ingram Micro as the VP of Cybersecurity for Ingram Micro, 20 plus years as well. So I guess we do have 50 plus years here just with Kevin and Eric combined. I won't even say how many years I have completely, but we'll leave that for another time. And Eric is also been in this industry for a long time, not just running all the security, but he runs all the data center services for Ingram as well. And as most of you know, Ingram is an incredible platform here in terms of what this company has done and transformed. Works with over 12,000 value-added resellers in the security industry, including quite a few of the NightVision portfolio. So we're very thankful for that. And Ingram is a major powerhouse in this sector. So I want to start out, Kevin and Eric, if I can, give us, maybe just, if you would, just for a minute, say a couple words about Optiv and Ingram, just so everybody kind of gets kind of your views on the market. Maybe, Kevin, you go first. Just tell them a little bit of Optiv and a little bit about the business for a second.
That sounds great, Dave, and Happy New Year to all. Great to be here for what it's worth. Optiv is a cyber advisory and solutions partner. We've been in business for quite some time, doing a lot of things. We started in the intersection of technology and clients, really bringing great tech to the market. And we built on top of that a very strong services business and now an emerging solutions business. I was just looking at our numbers, Dave, and we bring some 400 plus partners to market on any given year. And just wrapping up a robust 21, brought over $3 billion of technology to the market this last year. Remarkable, just really remarkable. That doesn't include solutions or services, just purely the technology we're bringing. And by the way, it's in the top end of the stack, our most notable partners, and it'll appeal to you and what you're doing with NightDragon. It's also in the emerging tech. So you see a really different, sort of bifurcation in the sample.
Yeah. So similarly,
yep. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been with Ingram for 23 years and I've been in the cybersecurity space since we were shipping McAfee boxes of software around many years ago. But so yeah, I have responsibility for our cybersecurity practice, and obviously Kevin and Optiv are longtime partners with Ingram Micro, and we really sit in that intersection between the OEMs and the vendor community and the solution providers and MSPs and resellers that are getting the amazing technology into the hands of the end clients. And I think the relationship that we announced recently, Dave, with NightDragon, is really because of a business that we launched solely focused on these new and emerging technologies. And I think we're all aware that there's not one silver bullet in cybersecurity, and it takes all of us, and it takes multi-vendor solutions to do our best to protect the crazy threats that are out there today.
Yeah, and that's really what I wanted to start off by asking you guys. I talk about what I referred to now for almost 20 years as this perfect storm in the world of cyber, where you have these confluences come together, right? Technology innovations going faster and faster, and more and more attack surface is being generated almost every day. We've got all these incredible vulnerabilities that seems like on a daily basis, especially in the last couple of weeks with Log4j. We've got all these geopolitical tensions around the world. You've got all this anonymity on the internet, and boom, you have this almost perpetual perfect storm the last 20 years in the cyberspace, now making this market, 100 billion plus and growing, many believe 3-4 times the speed of the high tech. But I want to kind of bring it to you guys. What did you see, maybe just comment, what did you see in 2021 first? What a year it was with the threat environment and all the announcements. And, you have a lot of experience in this for both of you. Like, how do you encapsulate and summarize 2021 for a minute from procurement and what you're seeing? Love to hear your high level thoughts.
Well, Eric, I'll lead off, but I just want to say thank you for the partnership, because we really enjoy our work with Ingram. So it's phenomenal to be on with a partner like you. What a year, Dave. I could go on for your entire broadcast on the things that we saw in 21. I'd love to say it's an anomalous year, but I can't say that. But what I will say to you is, the public sees just a small instances of the breach data. They're obviously more pervasive. My biggest concern and my biggest takeaway from 21 is we capitalized the adversary more in 21 than ever before with the degrees of ransomware that went on. And so a well-organized, well-structured, well-intellectually driven adversary base, 80% being nation, state, or organized crime, got more capitalized in 21 than did the good guys. That's my first big takeaway. The second big takeaway was, we used to see those breaches be really focused on mainstream brands, pretty broad across the F1000. And I think this year we saw encroachment into critical infrastructure in an unprecedented manner. And it's probably the biggest thing on my, watch list. I think you will see a real growth in OT expenditures in the coming 3 years at a pace that we have not seen before. And I think the third thing I would say is where our business used to really correlate, the regression, was very high. The R squared was high around breach instances. I think this year more than ever before, we've seen the correlation to digital transformation. It's in the driver's seat. And as you see companies continue to expand what they're doing, what they're digitizing, the use of technology, to your exact comment, the attack surface has gotten massive and continues to grow at an exponential rate. And with it too comes the necessity to secure and make that not only hardened, but more resilient. And I think we're seeing growth there.
How about you, Eric?
Yeah, to echo, kind of some of the things that Kevin said. I mean, we can spend all day talking about the crazy landscape out there and trying to combat breach fatigue, to some extent. I mean, these breaches and attacks, Colonial Pipeline, all these things making headline news literally every day. But 2-3 days later, there's a new one and there's another one. But it's not just these. I think one of the things that concerns me the most is seeing our channel community under attack, right? The MSP channel, these attackers are saying, hey, why go after one organization when I can get into one and attack hundreds? And so I think you're seeing, the channel respond to that. And you can't be a managed service provider and not be in cybersecurity right now. And so those are the things that we're focused on and we're working on. And these attacks, they're not going to slow down. And to Kevin's point, ransomware and how the multiples are multiplying in terms of, hey, we're not just going to take a ransom now, we're going to hold some of this stuff hostage, and it's absolutely crazy. So there's no signs of slowing down in this market.
Yeah, one of the things that I'd be curious on your commentary on, but at least as a CEO that's been in this segment for a pretty long time, I used to always think of the cybersecurity market like a barbell, almost like a weight. It was really big on one end, which was the enterprise, and it was big on the other end, which was consumer. And so you look at, sort of the growth of this. Suddenly the middle filled out over the last 18, 24 months, which is all those mid-sized companies, small and medium businesses. To Kevin, some of the comments that you made, which was suddenly the ransomware operators really started to attack that middle market in a way that we had never really seen before. And suddenly we saw a massive total addressable market grow in the middle. And that wasn't just America, that was all over the world, suddenly creating tens of billions of market opportunity from that, kind of couple hundred employees to a couple thousand employees segment, because they were the most vulnerable to ransomware. I'd be curious from your big picture, where are you seeing categories, market segments? Like, what do you think is the hottest thing in 2021 and maybe going 2022? Like, what did you see in your businesses?
Eric, you want to lead off on this one, and I'll play John Madden.
Yeah, sure.
Rest in peace.
I love the John Madden reference. What a guy. I think, to the point that I was talking about, and you mentioned it, the small business and medium-sized businesses under attack. I mean, certainly, again, that's hitting home straight to the partners that we serve in the channel community. I mean, I think we're reaching 25,000 partners annually, and about half of those now are procuring cybersecurity, solutions from us. And so I think one of the big trends that we're seeing certainly is this managed detection and response, and I think a lot of the partner community has a decision to make. Do you want to build it on your own? Do you want to build a SOC? Do you want to buy a SOC, or do you want to partner? And those first two were very expensive, and a lot of companies that we work with make those investments, but they still might need another MDR solution depending on what the client needs are. So we saw a lot of acceleration in market detection and response, and those companies that are leaning in on the channel have been very, very successful.
I'm going to just dovetail to Eric's comments. I mean, Dave, look, the easy answer here, sort of the Lego answer, if you will, is identity, right? As use case expand of access to data across the organization, identity as a broad category, whether it's governance down to pure functionality, has grown tremendously. But threat hunting, I think, has been the hottest category coming out of the back end of 21. I think it's gonna be the hottest category in 22 and 23. There's no question. MDR, broadly speaking, managed XDR. And I think you're going to see something very unique happen. We've been talking about collective defense. We've been talking about, capabilities being built into platforms where you can actually have multi-tenancy in terms of threat intelligence and sharing that. I think you're going to see the rise of coalitions in the coming year to year and a half around threat hunting. And I think it's going to happen, particularly at that enterprise level. For us, that was our fastest growing segment. I wouldn't call it mid-market per se, but organizations that are sizable enough to be on the threat radar of the adversary, but not capitalized enough, especially around headcount, to deal with it. And so I think you're going to see a rise in, external use for threat hunting and coalitions built around threat data in a way that's never happened before.
Yeah, I really believe this, and I've said this for many, many years. It sort of takes a village here, Kevin, when it comes to solving some of these threats. I mean, we're up against, nation states that are able to pour massive dollars of research into their operations, and we live in an asymmetric theater in a way that is very, very challenging for the defense. So creating coalitions and building that is key. Keep pulling on that thread, because I really want people to kind of hear what you guys think are the biggest categories of areas of growth in the cyber. So I really heard about kind of EDR, MDR, XDR, right? I feel that too as an investor and watching all of that. I mean, it seems inevitable. Our classic, I built EPP stuff way back in the day with McAfee. That had to really evolve to detection response, because that response became key. Then we had to really go, okay, we better manage that response with a service. And now we're getting into that whole extended detection response. I see that. You mentioned identity, Kevin, as well. You alluded a little to OT. Kind of give me 2 or 3 more, each of you, from what you see as the hottest and biggest TAM growth in 2022.
Well, I'll tell you where we're focused, Dave. It's around how do we get more telemetry into that managed XDR platform. That's one of our biggest plays for the year. Second biggest play, by the way, is around resilience, because Eric said it, like the breach instance and the ransomware and the hostage conditions, they're not going away. That curve has continued. And you look at the average downtime for an organization, if it wants to try and hold back from that, it's punishing. I mean, it makes what your connection with Delta looks like, trivial, right? I mean, just trivial in terms of downtime. What's the average remediation is 268 days. Tell me a business on this planet that can go 268 days without solving a customer need and stay in business. You just can't, right? So resilience is going to, I think, be a really big category. The thing I would say, and Eric touched on this, the notion of multi-year static managed agreements and engagements, I think, is a dead category. I'm just going to signal it and call it here today. For us, we've gone from a high double-digit rate of growth there to a mid-single digit. So I'm watching it through the numbers, but I'm also seeing it in the conversations in the context of our client relationships. They are expecting an innovation layer in almost everything we do. So are we willing to grow and innovate at a pace that's commensurate with the threat basis, as opposed to provision things that are static, that after the first year, have lower efficacy and just add to the technical debt? And I think that theme is going to play out very strongly in the next 2 years.
Yeah, I'll come back to a couple of your comments, Kevin. I agree there, but identity, obviously, and privileged access management and everything leaning towards zero trust. I mean, just think back to March of 2020. It was absolute chaos, because there were so many organizations that weren't ready, ourselves included. We weren't ready to go entirely remote. And I mean, I was getting emails from folks at government agencies saying, "Where are my tokens?" And we're a couple levels away, right? And it's like, hey, sorry, the whole world didn't plan to pivot, in the course of a week. But now it's evolved into, okay, we know that perimeter is gone. Work from home is here to stay. And how do we, secure that type of environment? To Kevin's point, we're seeing a big trend on this multi-year, everything as a service. And we're at that intersection between the vendor community and trying to make it easy for our friends like Optiv to transact, and the vendors are really looking for our help. Hey, can you help us build a managed service provider program? Hey, we don't have multi-tenancy today, but can you help us to build something to get into recurring revenue? And we're seeing a big pivot from annual subscription to enterprise license agreements, and then there's a lot of work that has to go into that. And so those are big trends from a channel perspective that we're focused on, and really helping that vendor community to solve some of those.
Eric, just to build on that, and Dave, just to put some color commentary to it. I mean, of our 400 plus partners that we bring to market, a small set we've actually embarked upon in 21, and certainly will double down in 22, building services capabilities wrapped around their functionality. I think that raises efficacy and use case and expands capability and opportunity for them. And obviously at the end of the day delivers for the client. And then for a small set, yet again, they're really ecosystem partners for us, where we're building things together like we've done with our managed XDR platform, where we'll continue to have a series of integration partners and have a multi-party solution, multi-partner solution ultimately. But I think I love your analogy of the barbell. My counter back to you is, has it really changed? Or did the dumbbells or the plates on either end just get so big that the center disappeared, right? Eric brought it up. Work from home has been around for a while. It continues to strengthen because of the pandemic. I don't think we're going to put that genie back in the box. And I actually think the two things just converged as a result, as opposed to them being two distinct separate markets. They might transact uniquely and differently, but the intersection is here to stay.
Let me draw on another big category I'd love to hear your views on. And, this word is, I call it the big shift. And I'd be curious where you see us in the big shift. The big shift to me is our network is changing right before our eyes, right? The pandemic, the changes in the work from anywhere, everywhere kind of trends have just changed our network, right? This MPLS network, this moat that we had built around our architectures for many, many years, suddenly, gave way to, a whole new architecture. People call it SASE, call it SSE, call it, WAN edge, call it whatever combinations of things that you're at. Where do you think we're at, the two of you, in that big shift? Because some of the greatest vendors are emerging out of that sector right now. Gartner sees this as a $25 billion TAM emerging right before us. We all know Zscaler has just approached a $50 billion market cap. Some of the traditional defense and depth of hardware and appliances is changing pretty quickly to this market. Love both your views on where we're at with the big shift of the network to a cloud network, a cloud SASE, call it what you will. What's your thoughts there?
Well, I think, the easy answer there, Dave, is this is here to stay. I think there are times in markets where buzzwords get out ahead of the market, and there's times where they trail the market. And I think, Eric brought it up around zero trust. Zero trust is the new perimeter. Zero trust is the new stance. The network and the use of the cloud, I think that's been coming for a long time. But I personally think we're still in the incredibly early innings of the zero trust architecture. I think this is a market that the buzzword has gotten out ahead of the actuality. When I look at our client base and I see just the pure numbers of how many have embarked on zero trust assessment, started to lay out an architecture, embarked on a 3-year program, they got alignment with the board around their expenditures, what assets will work in the future environment, what do they need? I think it's early innings. I think Gartner's numbers are probably a pretty accurate depiction, but my sense is there's more opportunity ahead. This is not like we're in the mid stages of a large transformation.
Yeah, I agree. I think even with SASE, I think we're still early on. And it seems to be an arms race with a lot of these big platform vendors, whether Cisco or Palo Alto Networks or Fortinet, really working to build out all of the capabilities and services that make up a SASE platform, if you will. And then there's a lot of work going on as these companies are looking to protect those investments. Hey, they're making acquisitions. They want to get those products into the end clients through the channel. So we're certainly spending a lot of time there. But it also goes to speak around, some of the new and emerging vendors that we talk so much around, which is, hey, what is the exit strategy for some of those companies? They're either going to go public or they're going to look to be acquired by a platform vendor. And so I think the role that Kevin and his team play and the role that we play, it's pretty fun. It's pretty exciting trying to figure out who the next is going to be. But it's really cool to watch some of these new technologies that are building more of a comprehensive cybersecurity solution.
it makes me jealous, Eric and Kevin. I almost want to go back and be a CEO of a tech company again. I think about growing McAfee over my time, and I was like really proud. Gosh, we grew this from $1 billion to almost $3 billion. We sold it for $7.7 billion. And then along comes CrowdStrike right behind it. And then we're 50, 60 billion on a third of the revenue. I'm like, darn, I missed my little window there. Same with FireEye. So, it's an amazing era. I kind of almost think of it as like the golden age in a way. After 20 years, watching where we're at in the cyber market segment. But then I look ahead and go, this perpetual storm is not ending. I mean, all the conditions are ripe for years and years of growth in this sector in a way that we have really never seen before. Let me ask you this question, the two of you. I just recently had a public-private partnership. I hosted the Homeland Security Secretary and Jen Easterly, the director of CISA, and others. And one common theme that they really hit was this talent shortage in the world of cyber. To the point of like most little companies can't afford a single security professional. What's your views on talent, access to talent? How are you guys solving talent? And I think it drives to the trend you both talked to, which is you want to now put, and I think we have to put the word managed in front of everything, which is almost driving right to that managed security service game. But tell me a little bit about the talent problem for your angles, because you run big organizations.
Look, this is the single biggest threat to our ability to deliver for a client in the end, in my opinion, Dave. No question about it. And whether you look at the data points I've looked at, 3 million unfilled jobs globally, nearly 1 million in the US, let alone the great migration, some organizations facing 25 to 35% voluntary turnover in 21. Think about that. We did not face that, candidly. We invested in our people as a choice in 20, as you know, with your relationship with us, and then doubled down yet again in 21. We've added a third to the organization in terms of its scale this year between voluntary term and growth. We've added a third to our population to be able to address this need. And our services bookings double our technology bookings when we look back on 21. And it tells the story, right? The threat is there. People are looking for more and more capability. Their ability to go higher is impaired relative to solution providers. And so I think it's a really unique time. But I don't think we can continue to use a NASCAR term here, because I've been Mr. Analogy for the day. We can't keep trading paint over the same people. We've got to start building new, right? So organizations like ours, Eric's and others, are going to have to get on campus, attract the new, the young, and invest the time and the money to build the next generation of professionals to serve in the industry. It's one of my biggest focuses, as you know, Dave, between going forward. We have to do this. Otherwise, we're just going to raise the cost point to a point where it's untenable, right? It's absolutely untenable.
Can't agree more with you, Kevin. Eric, what's your views on all of that with your big org?
Yeah, I think we're all facing similar challenges, and just a crazy job market. I mean, scroll through LinkedIn and watch all the people, starting new jobs. And so, you combine that with the cybersecurity, gaps. I think, we've really built an ecosystem of solutions and services, and to try to help solve for that. Not every company has the capabilities and strength of Optiv, but if there are things that we can do to solve some of the lower value tasks for an Optiv so that he can focus his engineering talent where it needs to be, that's a role that we play. And we've also built out a network of partners that have services reach and capability. I mean, you've got to have trusted partners in this industry, and it's not just from a vendor to vendor alliance perspective, it's partner to partner, whether you're solving for a geographic reach or a talent, or a capability that you don't have. This is a market where you've got to be able to say yes to your client.
That is so on point, Eric. I agree with that. I mean, it kind of comes back to my notion of coalitions. I mentioned that earlier in terms of clients, but I think we're going to see it in terms of solution providers as well, right? We have to. It's a basic necessity.
Yeah, absolutely. One more question for you two from me, and then I see quite a few questions coming in from the audience. And by the way, for the audience, if you guys want to ask a question, there's a little Q&A thing. You can drop a question in. I want to ask you quickly, I want to get one more view from your side. We talked about big picture trends, where we're at in the journey, some of the biggest categories. What about the biggest verticals, the industry segments themselves? What are you seeing there that maybe has changed or growing? Any thoughts on verticalization right now?
It's an area for us, Dave, that we've been investing more time in. Historically, it was not a focus for Optiv, right? And as you know, you've been along for the journey with us. We've really relooked at our segmentation over the course of the last year. It's been very helpful for us to allocate, our resources, our talent, our capital in the right places to make the biggest difference. When I look at 22 and beyond, verticalization is for sure a play. I think there's three, and I'm going to say something, and then of course everyone's going to think the three that I mentioned are all important and everything else doesn't matter. Let me be super clear up front, all of them matter. But places that we're going to make some unique bets, one is in energy and utilities. I just think it's a space that's that needs the help. I think there's going to be a continued pressure and attack base there. Two, hospitality, leisure, and travel. That's talk about the rubber band that's been pulled back during a very distressed last 18 months. I think that's going to springboard forward in a way that's never been seen before. And then third, manufacturing, look at the supply chain issues, which I think create an attack surface and a frailty that has to be addressed. So I see those three as being the three big plays for us.
Yeah, I agree with Kevin. Healthcare, obviously, as well. It was kind of funny going back to the Colonial attack, which is, drove some immediate new legislation. And I think just a week or so ago, hey, hurry up, railroads, we need to have, and so it's going to be whack-a-mole. Right. But there are certain segments, and it was funny, these guys in the ransomware as a service tried to play nice after the Colonial pipeline. Oh, hey, sorry, we have ethics. We're not going to go after healthcare, in the middle of a global pandemic. But there is no vertical market that is immune. And so that's the challenge we face.
Yeah, I would echo that, at least from my vantage point. The government market continues to be the biggest market for cyber from at least my vantage point, not just federal, but state, local, public sector. You're seeing a lot more spending now at that state, local area because of all the vulnerability to ransomware and hits. Some of you have probably seen 2021, 50% or more of all hospitals in America got hit by ransomware. I mean, hospitals of all things, right? So, the infrastructure that we have, particularly where it touches government, has been a big area of focus. And then obviously everything digital transforming online is, cyber baked right in, developer, led kinds of initiatives. My vantage point has been big too. Let me flip it over to a couple questions here. One is, I thought pretty good here, just in terms of, how we're seeing the role of channel and distribution evolve with hundreds, thousands of product sets across the security taxonomy. We track, by the way, 3,500, maybe I got this wrong, 3,572 vendors with my organization, right? So this is what you're up. You said, Kevin, you have 400 of them you're working with. How is this evolving with channel and distribution? And also a little bit of what advice do you give to product companies to work better with you?
Well, look, so I think the role that we play in an ecosystem, Eric used the term, we use it a lot as well. I think that the new technology that's coming out, the small shops that are doing something unique and leading edge is as important as the trusted voluminous plays, right? So that's our go-in thought process, number one. Number two, we continue to hear from our clients that the V in a value-added reseller matters to them. That notion of working at the intersection of technology, whether it's proven when we're talking about expansion of use cases or it's net new, that's still a real big V for them in terms of value add. So it's why we continue to not just think about field coverage, but technical resources in the field, engineering resources in the field to really think about success with a platform. And then third, the thing that really comes to mind for me is what role do we play? And I'm going to kind of go back up to the ethereal heights here and be a little less specific, but I think that the role that a company like Optiv and Ingram and others have to play is the role of a convener, right? Like we have to convene the ecosystem. If not us, then who will do it? You could always say, well, the government will do it, but I don't think that's the right answer. So I think it has to be commercially led. So I think it's a role that we have to play, which helps industry, helps our clients, ultimately will help our shareholders, but as sort of a byproduct at the end of the day. So I think it's a big play that all of us have to step up to.
You're doing, Eric, your thought?
Yeah, and it is a large ecosystem, and I think Optiv and Ingram are working together with roughly 50 or 60 brands, in our portfolio, and Optiv, as an example, doesn't want to go and sign 300 direct relationships and have to navigate payment terms and processes, and so there's a lot of work that goes into helping these new and emerging vendors to become channel ready, from simple things like having the right price book to taking advantage of some of the digital transformation things that we're undergoing to automate a lot of the processes and tasks, from, hey, where's my special pricing, to where's my stuff. There's a lot of work, because if we can take out that low value work and automate a lot of that, then we can free up investments to go drive sales and to go drive technical enablement. But obviously Kevin and I are channel guys, and I think the most successful vendors that we work with make a commitment to the channel and stick with that commitment. It's not, hey, Kevin, I want you to cover these partner or end clients, and we're going to cover these guys. And it's simple things like that drive success with the vendors we're working with.
Eric and Kevin, I've talked for 20 years about this analogy, which has been, I talk about the threat landscape driving what I call this pendulum of best of breed versus best of suite. And as new threats came along, it allowed emergence of new technologies to meet that threat, kind of the pendulum swinging to best of breed. And I was CEO of FireEye. We were kind of new APT, and nobody ever heard of an APT product. And we built a market out of that for a period of time. And then you watch the market shift to best of suite, where you integrate these suites. My humble opinion, we've now moved permanently to a best of integrated suite that requires a managed component around that, because there's too many seams in the best of breed model for it to survive later on. And so I believe that we've really moved into, call it security as a service, call it a managed service, call it an integrated platform. We've got to have that. And Kevin, you alluded to that, convening this, integrating this, creating a single solution out of it. The role of channel and distribution has never been more important, and it'll be front and center, in my opinion, to the way in which we'll solve these things. Last couple of minutes, I want to ask, by the way, thanks JJ and Steve for some questions here I just saw online, but talk about some disruptive technologies. Steve Benvenuto had a question here as well about 5G and acceleration of 5G and what it's doing to change a lot of things, particularly IoT and mobile, and ways in which security meets all that. Use the last couple of minutes, talk about some disruptive trends in technology, maybe 5G or something else. What are you seeing out there that 2022 is really going to bring about?
Well, I think 5G is a really great substrate to work on. What it's going to drive is a continuation of digital transformation. What's the current stat, Dave? You'll keep me honest on this. $6 trillion of global GDP has been digitized, which is about 2/3, which means there's $3 trillion still ahead of us. And I bet we cover the 3 trillion, in a nanosecond relative to what it took us to get to the 6 trillion, right? As GDP expands. So I think 5G is going to enable that. I think 5G is interesting because it opens up a global world order on this, not just a domestic one. And I think that's, you're going to see massive expansion there. But I think with all of this, one of the plays that I think is really underserved today is how do you actually drive security as a forethought in digital transformation and app development, as opposed to an afterthought. I actually think there's a point where if you go back 5-6 years, you'd see digital transformation was really kind of a pet project in the corner of an organization. Today, it's in the driver's seat, right? It sets the pace and cadence of an organization. And I think now you're going to see people say, I can't afford to have the time and the resources to do security after the fact. It's just too expensive. It's a layer of expenditure on top. So I've got to have it as a forethought. I think that's going to be a play that's going to be massive in the next year.
Yeah, I agree with Kevin. You know, I mean, I was meeting with a client a couple of weeks ago that have really pivoted their whole solution provider orientation towards helping companies to, you know, transform digitally. So I wholeheartedly agree with that. You know, we've got some thought leaders that are working on 5G and what it means. And IoT. I mean, the the millions and millions or billions of devices that are out there need to be secured. We see the supply chain challenges. So, you know, we've got a dedicated practice around IoT that is really starting to accelerate as well. It's scary stuff. I mean, I made the mistake of looking at my home network the other day and saw 65 devices hanging off of it. I'm like, I don't even know what these are. So it's just a tiny little fraction of what's going on out there.
You know, and to build on Eric's comment, Dave, like one thing to add in, we often get lost in this industry thinking machine to machine because we've walked down that path in terms of speed of response to look for algorithms to do a lot of things for us. But what is it? It's still 90+% is email based in terms of sort of issues arising in an organization. And I think we forget about the human interaction with technology. So my other word for you for the next few years is behavior. Right. I don't mean training per se, but I mean bringing some science to the human behavior around technology so that organizations can actually be more predictive around where you have issues, almost as if every person in an organization will have a little bit of a standard and poor's rating in terms of their cyber hygiene and behavior, so you can actually isolate risk. And I think there's been some good plays in that. I think you'll actually see a double down in that space.
All right, I'm going to put you both on the spot here in the last 60 seconds. So will 2022 be a bigger year for cyber from a growth point of view than 2021 was? And if so, give me some ranges of what you think it would be.
So we haven't quite printed our fourth quarter numbers yet, Dave, as you know, but I'm going to tell you with what I do know. We went into the fourth quarter with 5 successive quarters of record over record, right, in various parts. And I think 6 is going to be yet again the same. And 21 is going to be the best year Optiv has ever printed, period, end of story. And yet again, when I look at all the opportunity in front of us, pipeline, conversations with clients, where we're putting our capital, what we think will happen, it's going to be a bigger year, no question. No question. And I think for us, you know, I don't want to put a number down, but I would tell you that I think we're going to see a 30% rise on a historic year.
Awesome. Eric, your thought?
Well, I made the mistake of sending my boss an article that said 80% of organizations are looking to increase their cybersecurity budgets in 2022. So I'm sure I've got that to live up to. You know, another record year for us, you know, across cyber and data protection. And by the way, that's based on billings. When you think about this shift that we're under where, hey, a big 3-year upfront deal, those are moving and evolving into, you know, pay a third, and to still see the kind of growth, this train isn't slowing down. So I'll say strong double digit. How's that?
That's awesome. Listen, that is a great note to end it on. Happy New Year. We're going to have a great year. Kevin Lynch, Eric Cole, listen, thank you, my friends. Congratulations on building your businesses. I can't be more proud of both of you. It's amazing to watch the transformation Optiv has, the transformation Ingram Micro has had. It's been an honor to work with both of you, with our portfolio companies. I look to work with you for a long, long time, and best of luck in 2022. So thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.